being investigated is the immediate past chief of the military, Lieutenant General Kenneth Minima. He was at the helm of the military until last year. He's now being investigated alongside another former head of the military, Lieutenant General Anthony Ihejirika, and the former State Minister of Foreign Affairs, Nuruddin Mohammed. A preliminary audit in defense procurements found contracts were awarded without significant input from the users, and items were not delivered in some cases, yet vendors were paid. The audit report also says contracts were awarded to vendors who lacked required technical competences. Several others, including permanent secretaries and private companies named in the report, are also on the list to be investigated. But security analyst Max Banite thinks a lot more ought to be on the list.
Reading the newspaper today, I also saw the omission of some ministers of defense and the Minister of State for Defense during the era of Olusegun Obasanjo and Shehu Musa Yaradua, Umaru Yaradua, and Jonathan. So those names ought to be added to the list so that you can now have a holistic interrogation of what happened. And if there are any recoveries that will be made, you make your recoveries. And then sit down with both sitting and retired competent officers to, again, reevaluate the methods for future purchases.
Nigerian military have been struggling to defeat ISIL affiliates in West Africa, Boko Haram, and soldiers have repeatedly complained about being under-equipped. President Buhari faulted corruption for the slow progress against Boko Haram, and he vowed to bring to book any government official implicated. He also restructured the army and bought more weapons for the military, and that tilted the balance at the front line.
The morale of the Nigerian army and under the current Chief of Army Staff and the current Chief of Defense Staff has skyrocketed compared to the past, where Nigerian military or some elements of the army were alleged to be fleeing from Boko Haram. And even those that were alleged to be fleeing from Boko Haram, you have to also empathize with them, because if you compare the weapon being used by Boko Haram at a particular point in time.
Already, former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki is facing trial alongside others for diverting $2 billion meant for weapons purchase. This is the first time former defense chiefs are being mentioned in corrupt dealings. The audit report shows some of the payments were traced to bank accounts owned by their relatives. But President Buhari wants prosecutable evidence, and the next investigations are expected to provide that. Kelechi Emekalam, CCTV Abuja, Nigeria.